Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your leadership and service. You've got a very important job. I wanted to follow up on what both Senators Heitkamp and Tester talked about on the northern border. Actually, Senator Heitkamp and I, this committee, passed out a bill called the Northern Border Security Review Act. And essentially what it would do is make an assessment of the current state of the border between Canada and the United States. And to me, that makes sense as we look at resources. Is that something you think that would be sensible?
Sounds right. Yes, ma'am.
Great, thank you. I hope we can get that to the, I know it's pending to the floor, and I appreciate the chairman getting that out, and hopefully we can get that passed and get that to you. I also wanted to follow up on the questions that Senator Portman asked you about, obviously, the heroin interdiction over the southern border. And I think it would be really helpful for us to understand sort of what has been the trend, because other committees that I serve on, the testimony that I've heard is that we have seen a significant increase in production of heroin. And also, so I think it would be helpful for us to understand, as we look at what's happening on the southern border, how much is being interdicted and how much is coming through, because New Hampshire, the price on our streets is so cheap right now. And anything we can do, obviously, to drive up that price and to stop its flow is going to help what our first responders are doing on our streets to keep it away and obviously to protect people. So I wanted to ask you about the issue of fentanyl. Are we seeing an increase in fentanyl, which is, of course, could be as much as 50 times more powerful than heroin, and it is a huge driver of what is killing people in New Hampshire and the increase in our drug deaths?
I believe I have the numbers here for heroin and heroin seizures, which have increased from 15 over 14. Fentanyl, I don't have offhand, but I can certainly get you that, ma'am.
Well, that would be excellent, because we've seen that combination as, you know, someone I know who's in recovery is an amazing young man, described fentanyl as a serial killer because it is so much more powerful than heroin. So I think it would be helpful for us to understand the fentanyl numbers too, and
yes,
whether those have increased as well as heroin. I also wanted to follow up. I understand you just came back from a trip from Turkey.
Yes.
And the issue of, first of all, the foreign fighter flow, to get your perspective on where we stand with regard to the foreign fighter flow with regard to ISIS. And in addition to that, recently before the Senate Armed Services Committee, we had General Breedlove, who I'm sure you know, who's the European commander, come before our committee. And I asked him about the refugee issue. And he told me that he is concerned that, in fact, that criminality, terrorists, and returning foreign fighters are clearly a daily part of the refugee flow now. So could you give me an update on your sort of meeting to Turkey, what you see happening with the fighter flow issue, and how much ISIS, according to General Breedlove, he sees this as one of their strategies. How much is this, from a Homeland Security perspective, something that you're focusing on?
Yes, all good questions. I was in Turkey last week. I met with my counterpart, the Minister of Interior there, and we are making good progress in terms of information sharing with the Turkish government. That is something that they are interested in doing with us, and we're interested in doing with them. I signed several MOUs with that government to enhance information sharing, both with respect to cargo inspection and people. We agreed to further discussions in further areas that I'd be happy to brief you on in private. Overall, I think it was a very, very productive visit. We know from prior experiences that members of ISIL have left that area posing as refugees. That is a fact. In terms of refugee, I agree with General Breedlove's comments insofar as the worldwide refugee problem is something that poses a risk to us in terms of what ISIL is trying to do. In terms of refugee resettlement in the United States, as I'm sure you know, we have a very thorough, multi-layered process before somebody is resettled. It takes something like 18 to 24 months to complete for each refugee. And we've recently added further enhancements to the security of that process, just in the last several months, which will most likely add to delays, but we're also adding resources and personnel to satisfy our undertaking. But we do have a very thorough process right now, and we're adding more on, and we're always looking at whether more is necessary in terms of our own U.S. refugee vetting.
Do you think that process can eliminate all risk?
The way I like to say it is that in a free and open and democratic society that has a tradition of humanitarian goodwill and obligations when it comes to refugees and an immigration heritage, we should welcome with open arms people who are in need, who are vulnerable, but we should do so carefully. And I think the American people understand that in a free and open society, we cannot erase all risk. But we should do our best at security while maintaining our values.
Thank you, Secretary Johnson. And to me, this is a really, well, as I look at, I fully support ensuring that we're a country of a vibrant country of immigrants. It's something that I've been supportive of, including productive immigration reform and border security. But yeah, I respectfully disagree with you on the risk factor, as I hear what our intelligence officials have been saying with the risk and a strategy from ISIS to actually try to purposely infiltrate the flow of refugees. So I want to thank you for your work, and thank you for all those that serve underneath you. I mean, we all travel so much, and very appreciative of those who serve underneath you because they do very important work for our nation.